Hi everyone, good afternoon, good morning, depending on what time zone you're in. I'm Olajide Alabi. I was the recruitment manager for Gourmet Burger Kitchen. I've recently been made redundant, so no longer there. I was very fortunate to be able to launch a passion project of mine during lockdown, which is a company called Sisu. We are a diversity, inclusion, and wellbeing consultancy with a twist. We're here to help any company, any business embed diversity inclusion practices through roundtable discussions, through immersive workshops, through creative content, and yeah, we are here and we're proud, and we've got some amazing projects coming up. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
So we're going to dive straight in, and we're going to be talking about building confidence and how that can kind of influence wellness and resilience in the workplace. So let's go straight in. How do I build confidence in the workplace?
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, or there's one rule that fits all. But I think confidence can take a lifetime to build, and I think while taking only a moment or two, it can crumble into bits as well. Like it's one of those. It just depends on your life circumstances and what you've been dealt with, I guess. But I think I read something where it says it's been scientifically proven that confident people carry a different persona. So one where you have like higher self-worth or stronger radars between right and wrong, and you have the ability to convince other people to follow you. That's for me is a confident person, and people who are not as confident are less likely to succeed because they constantly second guess themselves and their inability. So I guess the answer to your question is that building confidence at work takes time. It starts in knowing who you are, and that knowing that you are good enough without blaming anyone else for any of your character faults, I guess. If you haven't done something before, teach yourself how to do it. Like, I think, so many times in life where people go, you haven't got the right skills for that, or you can't do that, you're not in the best place for that to get to that goal or whatever. People tend to have interesting ways of putting you down. I think, I had this conversation the other day with someone where I said, there is nothing in this world that I don't think you can teach yourself. Like, there's few things that you can't learn. And I've learned that in the last 6-7 months of having a small business. There's things that I didn't have a clue how to do, and I've learned how to do in the last couple of months because I've had to. And there's things that I never thought I would be able to do. Like I used to hate writing, and people used to tell me that my writing was awful. I remember in English, my teacher used to tell me that my English was poor. And I know my mum used to tell me that as well. She's like, your grammar is awful. And now I write blogs and I write content for people, and people pay me to write, and that's incredible. It's crazy. So you can learn most things, and I think you can learn anything these days as long as you put your mind to it, and you can do a bit of online searching. Everyone's got access to Google. I guess the other thing I would say is don't allow anyone to tell you what you can achieve, what you can and cannot achieve, because that's then allowing someone to knock your confidence. So I guess for me, it's being able to take people's opinions with a pinch of salt, and trust in yourself. Yeah, I think that answers your question.
I think you made a couple of really solid points there. I think that key one for me is teaching yourself new skills. So to develop our own confidence within ourselves and to make ourselves feel a little bit stronger, a little bit kind of like we're ahead of the game, going away and learning those new skills is a really powerful way of doing that. So to do that, I guess we need to kind of think about self-awareness. So what skills, what traits do I need to develop? How would you define that self-awareness, and how would you help me as an individual to kind of really be able to kind of, I don't know, maybe categorize and log my skills and traits, and then think, right, what do I build on? How do I build on them?
I think the power of confidence is actually power. It's knowing like you said, what skills you're able to do. So I always think the best thing to do is to write down the things that you're good at and the things that you enjoy, and then go from there. Because, like, for instance, I'll give an example. Like, I love creating things. I love being creative. I love talking, and I'm talking to people and being creative and having a laugh with people makes me feel confident in myself and makes me happy. So when I'm thinking about what I'm good at and what I can be confident with, I'm confident when it comes to holding a conversation. I'm confident when it comes to sitting in a meeting and throwing in creative ideas. And so then that starts to, I guess you start to work on your self-confidence, and you determine the size of what you can achieve in your goals.
Having that self-awareness is obviously a good starting point. And again, it's not the easiest thing in the world. I think there was a spell in my life where I don't think I had a complete grasp on everything that I was able to bring to the table. And I know that there have been interviews where I haven't really been able to kind of identify that and kind of share it in an interview process, which has kind of held me back in my career. So I love that idea of sitting down and making that list and thinking, right, okay, what do I enjoy doing? And then B, what am I good at? And find that kind of Venn diagram kind of crossover of those two kind of key areas. And right, boom, focus on that as much as I possibly can do.
I guess as well, like self-confidence allows you to move out of your comfort zone as well. Like if you're confident in yourself, you go, actually, these are the things that I am really good at, but I want to take a risk and learn something else and put myself maybe in a difficult situation so that I can become more confident in other areas that I'm not so good at. So, like I said about the writing, like I knew I wasn't good at writing, but I wanted to write because I needed to for the business. So I put myself into a situation where I threw myself into writing and practice and now it's become one of the things that I'm now confident at doing. So I think you make that list of things that you're confident doing, and then you make the things that you want to achieve. So you set yourself these goals, and then you keep push to get to those goals, and you might put yourself into a risky place and where it's not guaranteed that you're going to become confident in it, but sometimes it could pay out and you become really confident in that, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You have to unleash something that fire, I guess, and that power within yourself.
So if I do that, if I take a risk and I think, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to give it a crack. If I'm not successful, if it kind of falls short, how do I avoid that feeling of thinking, oh, God damn it, I'll just give that a miss going forward, and that's not for me? How do I kind of put that little kind of sort of devil on my shoulder? How do I keep that quiet and think, you know what, I'm going to have another go, and I'm going to keep going at this?
Oh, the devil on the shoulder. It's a tough one, that one, because the thing is that I actually personally like to embrace the devil on the shoulder, because I think it's really important to listen to your emotions sometimes. So like sometimes you get knocked back, and everyone always says that it's dealing with rejection. It's how do you deal with that rejection? How do you deal with that someone pushing you down? It's you listen to the rejection and you take it on board, because sometimes some of the comments and some of the things that people say can actually then push you to learn something new, or to make yourself more aware of yourself, so self-awareness. So I think it's what I tend to do, and what I would suggest is you listen, you take some of it on board, again, take it with a pinch of salt, and you don't allow that to then take over your journey, your personal journey. So what I tend to do is do something that makes me happy again. So after I've had something, a knockback or something that's not so positive, I'll do something that makes me feel happy about myself. So whether that is doing something that I am, so going back to that list, of that first list you made, doing something that you are confident in doing, or being around people that make you feel confident, you go back to that, and then get yourself back again into that momentum. I think in this life, in this world that we live in, there's never going to be a moment where you're not going to be knocked back down again, because funny enough, some people have this weird habit where they like to knock people back, and it makes them feel more superior. And I think you've got to also remember that some people just have to do that to make themselves feel better. And sometimes what I tend to do is when I meet people like that, I tend to realize that those traits, and I kind of feel sorry for them a bit, because they're lacking in the actual confidence, and the way they get their confidence is by making other people feel crap. So you've got to be aware of other people's traits as well. And me and my business partner we were quite good at reading people. So if I read a situation or read someone and I realize that the only way that they can get their laughs or their kicks or make themselves feel better is by putting other people down, I tend to then feel really sorry for them, which actually then gives me a bit more confidence in the situation, because I'm like, oh, you're not a confident person at all because you're doing this, or you're not a confident person because you've put on this persona. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to start learning how to read people, because you realize very, very quickly that people have different ways of showing their confidence, and people have different ways of expressing that, I suppose.
And I guess it's ironic, really, because those people who are utterly over-egging it and maybe do have to put other people down or kind of make jokes at other people's expense to make themselves feel good, they're actually not the one then who's in control, because you've acknowledged that. You've acknowledged kind of what is driving their behavior. So in fact, you're the one who's in the position of power, because you know what's happening in this room right now, and you know why that person is behaving the way they are, which then makes it much more comfortable for you to say, well, actually, that's cool. You know, to kind of your behavior, your choices, they don't influence me and what happens next for me.
Yeah, I think you have to develop a really high level of courage as well, and an incredible amount of persistence when it comes to confidence and how to kind of be confident, because like you said, you're faced with so many different situations. It's just, and sometimes, yeah, you're faced with so many different situations. Sometimes it's really difficult to get yourself back into that mode of wanting to be super confident. And I think what's really funny is that the people that you think are really confident people, because people have always said to me that, oh, you're really confident, you're really like outgoing, and I always say to people that, yeah, I have my moments. Obviously, everyone has their moments where they can be really confident. But when I was younger, I wasn't confident at all, because I was knocked back quite a lot, and I was bullied at schools, and people talked down to me, and people told me I couldn't be anything. And so it takes time. Like, I think it's only been in the last, it's maybe 5-6 years that I've really come into myself and really started to own who I am. And that's given me some real confidence in terms of knowing what I can achieve, knowing that I'm actually really good at what I do, and surrounding yourself with the right people that can build you up. And I think that's really important when it comes to confidence and being a confident person. It's surround yourselves with people that haven't got negative energy, that aren't going to be detrimental to your mental health, to your well-being, and to your confidence levels.
Absolutely. I think you've kind of got me thinking there about that fine line between confidence and arrogance. When you talked about kind of your school experience, I had a similar school experience. I was a sickly child, if I'm honest with you. Was never particularly well, and got kind of bullied and harassed quite a lot. And it took me quite a while to really kind of develop a kind of sense of self-confidence in kind of who I was. The challenge that I faced is when I kind of hit that mark, I then went too far the other way. And if I'm honest, Olajide, I was a bit of a dick. I just went too far. I got carried away. And I remember my mum saying to me at one point, Kieran, I don't like you very much right now. You're not being you. You've gone too far. And when mum kind of tells you that, you've got to take a step back and think, hang on a second, she has to love me no matter what. So if she's telling me that she doesn't like me right now, well, what am I doing wrong? So how do we walk that line between kind of maintaining that sense of confidence and projecting that, which is vital right now, I think, but not going kind of too far over the line and just being that arrogant cretin that people don't want to spend time with, I guess, which was the world I was living in.
It's a good question, Kieran. That's a really good question. The fine line between being arrogant and being confident. I think it's when you're being arrogant, like in yourself. I think you do know. I think you have to, when you are confident, you're more aware of other people's feelings and emotions. When you're arrogant, you're less so. You don't really give a fuck, which is that's kind of your mentality is, I don't care, I'm being me. And actually that's your mentality, then that's arrogance. That's not the right way to be. Actually, being confident is, I'm being me, I'm being true to myself, but I also am being really aware of other people's feelings, and I'm understanding other people's feelings and emotions and how that I sometimes can come across to them. So I think it's all about knowing how, having the right mentality, I think is the difference between arrogance and confidence, I guess.
Well, I think I'm bringing the tough questions, but you're bringing the answers, and that was solid. that moment of being aware of kind of how your behavior is impacting on the other people around you is absolutely the key. And from my perspective, for a good while, I had no idea. I wasn't even aware. I didn't care, if I'm honest with you. I adopted that mindset of like, this is just me. This is just who I am. And when I hear people say, this is just me, this is just who I am, it's just what I do, what I hear at that moment is, I actually don't care about how that influences the world around me or impacts the world around me, because it makes me happy. So
Yeah.
I'm not demonstrating empathy. I'm not demonstrating any kind of care that in hospitality we most certainly should do. I'm just focusing on what feels good for me. So that moment of being able to take a step back and think, well, actually, how is that impacting the world around me is key.
I think it's, arrogance is self-indulgent. It's it's selfish, whereas confidence is more about having empathy, but also being empowered. And I think there's so many ways of being empowered. And I always say that being empowered isn't just about looking after yourself. It's about how do you help other people? How do you create a safe space for people? How do you give yourself purpose of life and stuff like that? So it's, there's empowerment, there's empathy with confidence. With arrogance, there's just self-indulgence and selfishness.
We're going to have a lot of people watching these who are kind of thinking, right, I want to kind of project that right image. What's the positive effect that it can have if I am kind of walking that line of confidence?
I think if you are confident, I think in an interview process, as long as the person that's interviewing is clued up with with being able to read people and is experienced, you can honestly quite automatically in the first few questions understand if someone's confident, if they're not confident, or if they're arrogant. Because I think it's the way you answer your questions. It's answering your questions. There's a word, and the word slipped my mind, and it's really going to annoy me. But there's a way of answering the question that makes you feel humble. If you're humbled. So for instance, someone may say, what's your greatest, what have you achieved in your career? And someone arrogant may go, well, I've achieved loads of things, actually. I don't know where to start. And someone that's humble may go, oh, take a minute and pause and go, well, actually, I would say that one of the things that I am really grateful for, and I'm really that I achieved in my career was da, 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 da. And I think it's just the way, the language that you use and the way that you answer a question. And someone that's not so confident may go, I haven't really achieved anything. And I think it's your body language. It's the way you hold yourself. The way that you communicate and hold yourself is really important in an interview to show your confidence. They always say that, if you're sitting there with your shoulders hunched back and you're closed up, then that's lack of confidence. If you're speaking with your hands and more open, that's showing more signs of confidence. What else can I suggest? I would also say that making sure that you come to an interview with questions shows confidence. Asking questions, not just about the role, but maybe even about the person that's interviewing you. I always think that it's always good to have a question about the role and a question about the person that's interviewing, just to show that you are confident enough to ask a person, maybe not so personal, depends. I ask a person, I like asking personal questions. So something like along the lines of what's your greatest achievement been, or why are you working for the company, or what do you see where do you see the company going, like that kind of person, or not like, are you married? Have you got a boyfriend? Have you got a girlfriend? Like that's not okay. But I think that shows confidence in itself, that you're able to ask something a bit different.
The key of that is, for me, is that as a recruiter, your objective is for the person that you are interviewing to just shine. You are giving them the opportunity to step into the spotlight and share the kind of the successes that they've delivered in their career, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I think that's a decent interviewer is giving you a platform, a stage for you to perform. And as a confident person, you come in and you give them a show. I always say to my friends if I'm into, I've got a show. I've got a show today. I've got a show. You put on a performance, and it's you're going in and you're giving your best, and it's half an hour, and it's just you telling them about you and about what you've achieved and what you've accomplished. And it's not over egging yourself either. It's a fine line between going into an interview and telling a story, and going into an interview and bullshitting and over egging yourself and making that, because that then comes across that you're too confident, you're maybe on the line of arrogance. So I think it's really important you go in and you stay true to yourself, and you tell a story that's humble and warming, and shows your best side.
So I guess then the challenge that can potentially come next is you go in there and you give the show and you give your share of yourself and you give as much as you possibly can do, and maybe you're not successful and you get that kind of polite decline. That's a tough moment. So what advice have you got for the job seekers who are kind of potentially going to be going through that, so that they can maintain that sense of kind of confidence and that resilience to just keep pushing through?
My piece of advice is, number one, go and read my blog. It's an amazing blog piece around rejection. But I would say that don't take it personally. When someone rejects you, it's not a personal attack on you and your personality or you as a person. It's you're not right for that job. Take the feedback, listen to the feedback, take it humble, and then use that to push you forward to the next goal. I always say that, what every rejection is another door opening for you. So like, they're pushing you closer and closer to where you need to be, rather than, some jobs I've interviewed for where I've had the rejection and I've kind of sighed a sigh of relief, like, oh my God, I didn't actually really want that job. Like, I'm actually really glad I didn't get that job because actually it wasn't right for me. And then the next door opens and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this has happened and this job's perfect for me. Like when I left Wetherspoons to go to GBK, I remember interviewing for a couple of places and I didn't get, and I was so heartbroken. And then the door at GBK opened, and I honestly believe at the time I was like, this is literally the place I need to be. And I think as every door closes, another door opens. So I think you just need to remember that, because that will help you. Like, rejection is tough. It's hard to swallow, but you need to also ride the wave that is the emotion, because I think sometimes people get rejected and they just go, oh, it's fine, I'm absolutely fine, and push it to one side. And then if you do that so many times, there's only so many times you can keep pushing that box up to the top shelf, and before it eventually falls on you and cracks your head open. So I think, you need to deal with each rejection as it comes, process it, and then move on.
There's real power to that, isn't there? I think that idea of just thinking, I can just keep pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing it down. At some point, it's going to overboil and it's all going to pop itself out. So dealing with it step by step, anytime that it happens, and then thinking, right, what do I learn from it? And I move forward and I move forward. That's the power of it. So what we will do is we will link to your blog, because I've read it, and actually it is a great piece of work. For a man who's really comfortable with his writing, that's a tidy piece of work. So we'll link directly below and make sure that people can get the opportunity to go and read that. Top drawer, mate. That's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Shall I give you a quote to end? I always like a quote. There was a quote that I read. Oh, who was it by? It was by Rumi. Don't be satisfied with stories, how things have gone with others. Unfold your own myth. I think sometimes confidence comes where you compare yourself to other people, and so sometimes you forget that your own story is your own story, and sometimes you have to unfold your own story to move forward. So yeah, that was I read it the other day and I was like, this is so good, I'm going to use this for my chat with Kieran. Nice.
I love it. That's the thing I love about chatting with you, man. Every time you drop me a lovely quote at the end of a conversation. And
I'm a quote man.
Amazing, mate. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. It's so nice to talk to you.